All right, so in the 45, 45, 90, one thing that we know is the two angles that make the 90 degree, the two sides that make the 90-degree angle are equal. So if I'm looking at question number 1, in order for me to solve for y, I see that the other side makes the 90 degrees. So y is 3 radical 2 over 2. Right? Y is basically given. Now to solve for x, I'm going to start with the number given to begin with, 3 radical 2 over 2. And then I'm going to multiply it by radical 2. When I have a fraction, if I'm multiplying, I put the radical 2 on the top. If I was dividing, I would have put the radical 2 at the bottom. So the number given times radical 2. Now I see that the top 3 times radical 2 times radical 2, that should become 6. Because when you combine the two radicals, that becomes a whole number 2. When I combine my whole numbers, I get a 6. So I have 6 over 2, better known as 3. So from the side to the hypotenuse, we multiply by radical 2. If I started from the hypotenuse, like question number 2, if I started from the hypotenuse, in order for me to solve for x, I will go the number given divided by radical 2. I'm dividing, so I put the radical 2 at the bottom. I cannot have radicals at the bottom, so let me go top and bottom. I'm going to multiply by radical 2. So I finish with 3 radical 6 over 2. On the top, I did combine my radicals. Y, in order for me to solve for y, I'm just going to go 3 radical 6 over 2. Because in this case, x and y are the same thing. Yes. I started with this radical 2 because I was dividing. I was dividing by radical 2, so I put that radical 2 first. But then no radicals at the bottom, so then I included a radical 2 on top and bottom in order for me to get rid of the radical sign at the bottom. So any questions on the 45, 45, 90s? We're good? You don't get it? The idea on the 45, 45, 90 are the two that make the 90 degrees. If you look up both questions, the two that make the 90 degrees are equal. In order for you to get the hypotenuse, multiply that side by radical 2. In order for you to get the hypotenuse, multiply by radical 2. But if you're going backwards, like you're starting from the hypotenuse, divide by radical 2. Any other questions? On the 45, 45, 90, we're okay? Now, let me move on to the 30, 60, 90. On the 30, 60, 90s, are easy. The hypotenuse and the short side, the relationship between them. So I'm looking at question number 3. The hypotenuse is 8. The short side, it's wide. The relationship between the hypotenuse and the short side, which I covered yesterday, was the short side, it's half of the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse is 8. I'm going to say y is 4. The short side is half of the hypotenuse. If I was given the short side, in that case, multiply by 2 to get the hypotenuse. Now, for me to solve for x in question number 3, given that the small side is 4, I'm going to say x is 4 times radical 3. The short side multiplied by radical 3. Now, looking at question number 4, I'm starting from the short side, which is 7 halves. I have to multiply 7 halves times 2. Because I'm multiplying, I'm going to put my 2 on the top. So the short side times 2, which should give me the hypotenuse. I can say, well, the 2's cancel out. And my answer is 7. The short side times 2 gives me the hypotenuse. In order for me to solve for b, I'm going to start with 7 over 2 to begin with, the short side, times radical 3. So I'm going to put the radical on the top. And those are basically it. Those are my answers. Any questions on the 30, 60, 90?